Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and
plus
beer.
years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Saying community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the raspy dispatcher. If you follow me on social media, it's been a rough week. I went out to Seattle to visit some friends who just had their second child, and then I got COVID. So it's been a little rough. I'm definitely recovering, feeling better. But it's definitely interesting when you're on vacation and then your vacation's extended, but you don't want it to be extended. So for everyone out there who's feeling a little sick, I'm here with you, thinking about you. Hope you feel better soon. It never feels good to not feel 100% yourself. So for today's episode of Let's Talk Dispatch, we are talking with our guest today. 25 years of service, working in urban centers, rural centers, and everything in between, is the current director of Aurora, Colorado Center, Tina Buneta, and I'm going to bring her on now. Hi, Tina.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks for having me. I'm
Oh my
so
gosh.
excited. Having a fangirl moment here.
Oh, you stop it. You stop it right now.
No, seriously, like I love what you're doing with this platform. And so when we talked about my joining you, it was just such an exciting moment for me. I love that we are bringing forward our voices in the industry in this way. It's a very exciting time.
It really is. And I mean, one of the things that I love about talking to folks, I mean, you've been doing this for 25 years. That is no small feat. And for anyone who is considering getting into this line of work or is in this line of work knows, like, folks don't hit 25 a lot just because of the line of work we're in. And I can imagine you've seen such the shift from us being, in the back to the front over those 25 years.
Oh my goodness. First of all, in case anyone is wondering, I started when I was 12. You're doing the math.
I was never good at math. I had to tell my backgrounder I cheated through my accounting class. So.
No, I was definitely not 12. And as a matter of fact, I was 29. So you can do the math there. But isn't it crazy how we find our way into the profession and how different it was back then? I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And here's a funny story. I didn't even realize I had applied for the job. So, everyone always says, like, I found 911 by accident. And I'm no different, right? So if you're looking for like an inspiring story of I always wanted to be, you're not going to get it here today. But it was like the happy little accident of my life, and it completely transformed everything for me. So I was working at FedEx part-time, and that was a fun job. It wasn't stressful, and I worked like 4 or 5 hours a day. It was super easy. But I really was thinking, I was like 29, really thinking about, I need to do something that's going to secure my future. I need to invest in something that, I can invest in a retirement. I'm not getting younger. I need to get it together, right? My mom was also in my ear saying, you really need to get a job with.
Funny, our parents sound the same.
And so I made just like a general state of Colorado application. And back in the day, right, you filled out this sheet, and it was like the dot matrix sheets where you filled out the circles, and you said, like, where are you willing to work, and what are you willing to do? And
everything,
evidently,
everywhere.
and evidently, I checked dispatching. Because why not? And it was available in Pueblo. So, okay. But I never gave it another thought. I completed the test. I came back in and did another, it was like general English, memorization, logic, the ability to translate summarize a story, and
Mhm.
all of this stuff. Again, with the little dots in the booklet, and you fill it out.
Yeah.
And so I completed that, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get like a secretary job, or I don't know what I'm doing. So I go to work at FedEx one day and come back, and I have a voicemail. Okay, so for you really young people, the way voicemail used to come in was it would ring to your phone, and then when you didn't ring, it would answer by a machine. You recorded your voice, and then it played on a little cassette tape.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, I had a blink, right? I play it, and I hear, hello, I'm calling for Tina. This is Dawn, and I'm calling with the Colorado State Patrol. And immediately I panicked. I was like reassessing every moment of my life for like the last month, like, why on earth would the State Patrol be calling me? Like, my plate's expired. Am I in trouble? What's happening?
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I called back because it's the law and you do what you're told, right? I called back and he said, well, you filled out a job application. And I was like, oh, I did. I did.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Oh, yeah.
they invited me in, and I took this ridiculous, some of you old timers will appreciate this, but I took this multitasking test called the Perfects. And it
Mm.
looked like an old timey operator console with a microphone coming out, and there was pegs and rings, and you had paper to write on, and it was a recorded thing where you followed instructions.
Interesting.
It was it was crazy, but evidently I did really well on it.
Rocked
And
it,
so
100%.
yeah. Well, okay. I remember that I scored a 96 on it.
Hey, look at that.
Who knew, right?
That's
Who
right.
knew? And so I ended up in a interview and then background, and that was crazy, right? So, coming onto a law enforcement agency, and they know you better than your parents and your best friend and everybody else. What a lesson in vulnerability that was.
Yeah.
But a past, obviously.
Mhm.
Phew,
They still haven't figured it out yet.
yeah,
Still pending.
they're not on to me yet. And they, so I started, and I'd say about 2 weeks in, I thought to myself, where have you been? Where have
Mm,
you been all my life? Like,
yeah.
this is made for me. And also, it really scratched that itch of wondering what I do next, because I had gotten
Mm,
into this horrible cycle of getting on with a job and then learning the job, like
mhm,
mastering the job and becoming bored with the job. And I started to
mhm,
cycle about every 6 to 12 months looking for a new job. And
mhm.
again, my mom's in my ear like, that's not a good look. You better stay longer.
Yeah.
But I was like, like itchy, miserable, like, what's next? I can't do this for the rest of my life. And it was the
Yeah.
first time in my adult life where I thought to myself, like, okay, I feel like I'm home right now. Um, but it was a different situation, right? Like we had like DOS based computer, like a CAD system. We had to like Alt T, like
Oh my
timestamp. And
gosh.
at midnight every night, we
Oh
had to
my
purge
god.
the data from the day, and it would print out on a dot matrix printer,
Oh my
and then the data was gone, and you started fresh at at 0 100 hours with
oh
a
my
new
gosh.
day. And so even archive, like retrieving data, if you were researching an event, you had to go back to your dot matrix printouts for the day and read
Oh my
through them.
gosh.
We did a
I
lot of
say all the time, I
handwriting.
could not do
Yeah.
the job
It was
10, 15
crazy.
years ago, like, just
Yeah.
growing up the way we've grown up. It's just like
Hmm.
the way folks dispatched when back in the day, minus the technology,
Yes.
just mind blown, mind blown. Docs Matrix, like, what?
Yeah. Well, and
Purge
we
my
were
data?
actually our center was one of 5 regional centers in the state, and so we were the only center that had this system. Our center manager has a background in computer science, and he had actually developed this. He was kind of like developed the first CAD
Oh
for
my
the Colorado
gosh.
State Patrol. Everyone else was doing pen and paper, and Denver, which is in the metro area, had this
Yeah.
crazy card system where the call taker would write down what was happening, and then we had these track systems that went around the center, and they would put the card in the track, and it would You fly across the room to the dispatcher.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that sounds kinda cool.
Isn't that, I mean, well, and then there are mythological stories like of flaming cards.
Oh my.
Whether or not they were literally on fire when they went down to the track, like no one can prove that one way
No,
or
it's
another.
giving me Harry Potter vibes, and I'm with it,
I
I'm
I
really
know.
with
I was
it.
like, I feel a little jealous. Like I would have been down for some flaming cards in the
Right?
track. Like that sounds exciting.
We had manual mode and we did the cards, like, when all of
Yeah.
our computers went down, and we had a little bell. So if I was call taking and now I had to go to radio, I would stand up, finish my card, ring the bell, and we'd had a runner. So we didn't have a track system, we had a runner come grab it and bring it to the right station if we went down.
Should have had a track system.
I
I'd never
know,
heard of that before. It's the only center I've ever heard about. So if anyone relates to this, I'd love to hear your story about your
Yeah.
track system for
Oh
cars.
my gosh, shit, like, who built it? I wanna talk to that person. Who was it? And they're
I
like,
know.
I think this would work," you know?
Yeah, I mean, like that is, and that was the only center that had a track system. Like
Yeah.
5 centers and we were all like completely different worlds, and it really was, right? Because you were local, your troopers were local,
Mhm.
right? You were working in your communities, and so it was very much like, right, different agencies under one agency,
Mhm.
um and how we have progressed since then has just been, it's just been perpetual. Like this
Yeah.
evolution is crazy. And
Yeah.
now, right, like, my centers on, next gen, we're getting ready, to deploy, we're going through RFI, RFP for new call
Mhm.
management that will give us AI powered automatic
Mhm.
language detection, translation, transcription, the ability to pinpoint someone's location and their, and the X axis, and like to be able to, or Y-axis. Did I say X?
You did, but that's okay.
It was close in the alphabet,
I
right?
mean,
So,
yeah, they're next to each other, right? It's like
oh,
this.
let's see here. You know what I mean. You're picking up what I'm putting
You
down.
know, I got you, I got you. I cheated through accounting, so
Solve for X. No,
it's all
that's
right.
Y.
They shouldn't even be there. We're talking numbers, okay?
But isn't that bananas? Bananas that were there.
Oh,
Um, I think
really
it's,
is.
we're just at this moment where I waited so long. I knew in my heart that we had this potential. And I think I was just, wondering when it would take off. And then suddenly you realize you were in the middle of it. Like this is happening. It's happening right now. And I get to be here and be a part of this. And super, super, super exciting. Like
Yeah.
we all are crafting and influencing tomorrow's 911
Yes.
right now. It's just amazing to think
It
about.
it it is really that is really a wonderful way of looking at it because, we've grown up always having access to 911. And I mean, there's folks out there who still don't have the same access that folks in the cities do and things like that. But generally, Americans, we dial 911. We're used to this instant gratification of folks coming and helping and knowing where we are or thinking we know where you are.
Right.
And the reality is the technology has only been around what 50 what do we have 55 years or something like that? Maybe 60?
50,
I'm
68.
68, something like that. So like very
Yeah, 55. I was thinking 1968, correct?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. So I mean that's not that long,
Mhm.
and it's something citizens, civilians we're all used to having, but the reality is this is new. It's only I mean, it's an infant, in the
Right.
stage of adulthood and life. It's still in its infancy.
Right. Right. I mean, truly the role has changed so much. When I first began dispatching, one of my leaders always told me like, your motto, your role in life in this role is to be the pipe. Just be the
Mm,
pipe. Information flows in, information flows out. Don't think about it, just be the pipe. And
mm,
that is so not true anymore, right? We are
mhm,
information
mhm,
analysts. We're triaging, we're prioritizing, we are expanding the numbers of resources, right? So it's not just cop, car, fire truck, ambulance. It's
mhm.
alternative response. It's a
Mhm.
civilian response process for, crash investigation. It's a clinician and an EMT handling mental health calls. It's right. And so the complexity of how we're connecting people to resources has, right. And it's not done like that.
Mhm.
Spectrum just began to expand and it's going to continue. Like, who knows what this will look like in 2 or 3 years? Um,
Mhm.
I know in Aurora, like the number of resources that we have available now has just been multiplying every year. And
Mhm.
we have to pivot with that, right? And
Mhm.
so it's really about like this evolution of what it means to be a 911 professional and our role in public safety as an equal but separate spoke of the wheel, right? We are partners
Mhm.
with our field responders and law enforcement and fire and EMS and alternative response. And right, we have to stand up, take ownership of it, take a hold of our role and maximize it, professionalize it, make it
Mhm.
our own, make it, maximize the efficiency, um, make our dreams about the potential the reality of what is. And that's hard work, right? Like,
Mhm.
we talk about reclassification all the time and
Mhm.
how we deserve to be considered a protective service. And I agree.
Mhm.
But there's nothing magical that happens with that. The hard work
Mhm.
we do right now to take ownership of our role and ensure that we have the most trained, certified, professional, capable, resilient workforce that is able to deliver on that complexity. Like, we have to do that because the
Mhm.
reclass doesn't change anything, but the work we do right now changes everything for us. And I think it actually ultimately paves the way for the recognition that we're earning by doing this very important and difficult work.
So, so, so true. And you're a director of an agency, and so you're leading your folks, into this direction. And I would imagine that having you as a leader, having you with that mindset, being so willing to accept the new, being willing to pivot. I think historically, centers have struggled a little bit with change and being able to accept that new technology and accept those new services and accept that we are evolving in our roles in public safety and dispatch centers. How do you promote that in your center? How do you empower your folks to embrace that change and essentially be leaders in that change in this line of work?
Well, it's a long process, honestly. It's not something that happens in a vacuum. And I'm 3.5 years in with our team, and I'm so proud of the progress we've made, but we still have work to do, and we all recognize that. So I think the number one thing for any leader to do to inspire interest or engagement of your team for changes in what's possible is you have to number one you have to know what's out there, like being in tune with your industry and understanding what's coming down the pipe before it reaches you. But number two, like being able to tell that story. And I think that leaders who have lived it, I've lived through all of the progressions, and I've started with not much and see where we are now, and it's so
Mhm,
different. But having that relatability and being able to tell the story
mhm,
of how 911 is growing up, right?
mhm.
I've been able to see almost half of 911's life through my own eyes. I mean, right? Like, wow, I can't believe I've been around that long. It goes by so fast, but
Mhm,
how much happens is just amazing. And right, being able to tell that story in a way that shows the growth but sets everyone up to see the potential for what could come and what could be, and then translating that into how would it make me more successful, how does it make my role better, easier,
mhm,
how do I feel like I get the closure I need on calls, how do I better connect with people, how do I ensure that everyone goes home at the end of the day,
mhm,
and when you're able to tie what you're working toward to those needs, there's relevance, right?
mhm,
The why. I think that's
mhm.
just important for any adult. to know and understand the why. And I think as leaders, it's our most important job to translate that and really communicate the why all the
Mhm.
time, because
Mhm.
people are reasonable. And if they understand why something's important, they're likely to get behind it. But
Mhm.
secondly, I'm not just going in myself and making a bunch of changes. That would be silly. I have smart people on my team, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, the role of a leader is like hire good people and then get the hell out of their way and
Mhm.
let them do what they do the best. So,
Mhm.
involving people, letting at every rank, every role, every level of experience, like getting a cross section of your team to have a working group for an implementation, or like whether it's you're bringing on a new CAD, or you're looking at a new phone system, or you're trying to engage on some process improvement for how do we handle all of this workload better, but
Mhm.
involve the people who do the work and
Mhm.
then listen to their ideas. And I think that fundamentally that has proven to be very helpful and successful for our team because, well, look, I don't pretend to be the smartest person in the room, and I never will be, and I
Mhm.
never want to be. Um,
Mhm.
but the people who are doing the work every day, they're living it
Yeah.
up close every day. And if I don't trust them, right, then
Mhm.
who am I? Who am I
Mhm.
to lead them? And I don't have a right to do that. So, it's the relatability, but in my mind, it's people will rise to your level of expectation. And so if you say, I trust you and I want you to come up with a solution, they're going to do it.
Mhm.
And they do. And they have.
Yeah.
So it's right. I mean, it's not rocket science in my mind. It's just
Yeah.
realizing that what I realize what I would have wanted in my career,
Mhm.
like growing up in my career,
Mhm.
thinking about what I would have liked to have been a part of, or what I would have liked to provided input on for whatever was
Mhm.
happening in my world. And I remember that.
Yeah.
And so I just want to be the opposite of that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think you made so many good points. Hey, let me talk. I love the how 911 is growing up reference, like, because it's so true when we talk about it being in its infancy and how much, for me, it's changed in 5 years, let alone 25 years, right? But then when you're talking about how we are impacting our centers as leaders, and it's really extending a hand and making folks have buy-in to the things that they're working on 12 hours a day.
That's right.
And sometimes I think we can get caught up in saying the buzzwords, doing the buzzword things, but you really have to be intentional and meaningful with the things you're doing. It's not like I'm putting out a survey and they're not reading the results. You know what I mean? Like you people know what fake is, right? They know when it's just being done to say it's been done.
Hmm.
But allowing folks to really contribute to this environment that they are spending 12, 14 hours a day, that they're missing family events in, that they're, coming in on their off days because someone else is sick, that's when you're going to have a successful environment.
Hmm. And really, it's how I think the environment really, it really hinges on how we hold ourselves and each other accountable
Mm,
to really show it, how to our collective expectations of how people show up.
mm,
So just to tell you a quick story,
please.
we have been working on, and starting with our leadership team, because that's where it starts. But rolling this out to our entire team, we've been working on a project now for a few months, and it's really based around emotional intelligence and EQI. So we
Mm,
brought in our esteemed uh, consultant, Adam Tim. Everyone knows who
mm.
Adam is, and we brought him in first to engage all of us as leaders and help us do a self-assessment on our individual levels of emotional intelligence and where we excel and where we can grow and where we're in balance and where we're out of balance. And it gave us a snapshot of ourselves and how we engage with the world. But then we were able to look at ourselves as a team to see our collective strengths and areas of growth so that we could understand how we're functioning as a team and how we bring balance to our team. It's vulnerable work. But my entire, like my manager, my managers, my supervisors, everyone participated fully. And it was really a practice in vulnerability for all of us. I also went through the program with them. But at the end of the day, we learned a lot about our triggers, our defenses, what happens in moments of stress. What do we do? Like what causes us to shut down? Because how we show up is going to completely influence the entire work environment around us.
Yeah.
And so we really, we've been working on that. The next phase was to engage the entire department in first identifying what our team's core values are right now. And so we put it out to the entire department and everyone had to participate. And we identified 4 core values for our team: respect, teamwork, compassion, and integrity. And then we spent time together, all of us, in meetings with the department, asking everyone to explain to us what it means to live within those values and what does it mean when you're outside of those values. Um, and we've just kind of finished this part of the process, but we were able to define what each of the 4 core values mean for us. We were able to identify the behaviors that support those core values and the ones that are out of bounds. And then from there, that becomes a part of who we are, right? It's instilled into our policy. It's instilled in performance management. We are empowered to hold each other accountable, to speak up when someone's out of bounds. And and that part really is, I think, fundamental and just foundational to, if you want to do anything productive with your culture, you've got to do the hard work first, and it starts like inside each of us. So, that is one thing for us that we're excited about this. The momentum is fun, but we're not done. And I encourage anyone who's struggling with just having maybe a negative culture, or one that is, feeling disempowered, or if you've got a lot of turnover and you can't put your finger on it, like, it starts inside. And as a leader, right, if I wanted to change anything, I had to start inside of me and then work my way outward from there. And it's catching on. So I just, I share this because it was very different from the world I grew up in, 20 years in a, very structured paramilitary organization that was very hierarchical, and you do what you're told and you don't, and what came from that was disempowerment, but that disempowerment becomes comfortable because when you're disempowered, you're also not responsible for what happens. And so, right, like, in order to turn that around, you have to do something very, very different. And so we're trying to really flatten our organization and give everyone a voice. And it's cheesy, right? People are like, gosh, that's like, that's really
I love me a charcuterie board, I love cheese.
I'm all about the cheesy, warm, fuzzy, lovey-dovey, huggy, like, that's just me. But it's not everyone, and I recognize that. But even if you're not that way, this is for you too. So,
well, the thing that I love about, this journey you're talking about that you folks are going on is that a lot of times folks who are thrusted into leadership roles for whatever reason, whether it's like staffing and they just get moved into it, or they had leadership roles in the past and they're qualified, or whatever the reason is, we just expect those folks that are put in those roles to know what to do. And it's like, to a certain extent, yes, but at the same time, we expect our, dispatchers who are answering the phone to continue to get better, to continue to learn, to continue to train. We should be expecting that of our managers and supervisors as well. you know, and it sounds like what you folks did was you opened yourself to be vulnerable and to be taught, you know, right? To be taught
Yeah.
about yourself, to be taught about how you interact with folks and how you impact people by your own triggers and your own actions. And, you know, and I think we miss that a lot in management. You know, you're kind of focused on, you know, correcting or implementing or doing the thing for someone else, but at the same time, like, we got to work on ourselves as leaders too, so we can have better impacts. So I think it's amazing that you folks are doing that over there.
Well, you know, the truth is we never arrive. And
Mm,
if we feel that we have, we really don't deserve to be in a position of leadership. I think
mhm,
that if you want, you have to emulate, or I'm sorry, let me back that up. You have
mm,
to model the behaviors that you want your team to emulate. So if
mhm,
I want people to be, you know, lifelong learners, if I want people to be growth minded and
mhm,
open to development and perpetual improvement and finding your potential and reaching it and then setting a new level and reaching it,
mhm,
I have to do the same thing. I can't tell you to do it while I sit back and not.
mhm,
I learn something new every day. And 9 times out of 10, I'm learning it from a member of my team. I learn from them every day. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm surrounded by smart people. I'd say most of them are smarter than me. And I'm glad for that because that makes me feel good knowing that, you know, we all have a shelf life. And when my time is done, that center will be in good hands with
mhm,
someone who knows what they're doing and is ready to continue the work that we're doing. And you know, I think that's what it's about, is what is the legacy you want to leave? What is the impact that you
mhm,
want to place on your team for the brief time that you're there? Because
mhm.
none of us are around forever. So my goal is that when it's time for me to retire and I move on, that my team never misses a beat. Like,
Yeah.
they might miss me as a person, but they
Mhm.
don't miss me as their director because
Yeah.
they got it. And if I do that, then I know I'm a success, right?
Yeah. And it's such a wonderful thought, right? It's like no more gatekeeping in dispatch. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're going for. Is like
Yes,
I don't need to hold the keys to the city. Like everyone can have a copy, you know, like we're
yeah,
not talking about security or whatnot, but
right.
like all this knowledge, all these abilities, these things, like we should be pouring into each other. So, you know, I'm not dreading working with Tina, you know, Tina, I'm carrying Tina. It's, you know, Tina's the same as my other shift partner or like whatever that looks like. We should really be just empowering each other to do better, have knowledge, you know, like let's make this hard job easy, you
Right.
know?
It's not a competition.
It's
At the
really
end of the
not.
day, we should all be working toward the same goal. And,
Mhm.
you know, there are days, honestly, Ashley, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mhm. Big facts.
I have lots of those days, right? Even someone
Mhm.
pointed it out to me in a conversation, and it cracked me up. I won't use the word that he used, but he said, you know what I like about you? You know, you just have this attitude of, I don't know what the I'm doing, but I'm doing it. And you know, it's been ringing in my head ever since he said it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I think that was the first time I was like, I really feel called out right now.
Right?
And
Like
I'm like really called out. I'm like, wow, I feel seen. I don't think I
mhm.
feel judged, but I definitely feel seen. You know, but I think that it's letting go of that expectation that you
Mhm.
have every answer, that you have all the solutions, and that, right, that you are responsible for what happens in your team, but
Mhm.
that you have to make all the decisions. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I get decision fatigue. And
Mm.
if someone else is better at making a decision on an issue than I am, like, why not trust them to do it? So,
Yeah.
um, I think it's just really letting go of the control and knowing that you can trust your team. And if
Mhm.
you're intentionally bringing in the right people with the right skill sets that align with who you are and your philosophies on leadership, it's easy to do. Um,
Mhm.
but it's taken practice, and
Mhm.
it was foreign to me, right? I am a civilian woman who grew up in a uniformed male environment. And
Mhm.
so right, like in terms of finding your voice, like I struggled with that for years
Yeah.
because, right, like good women leaders are quiet. And
Mm,
you can tell I'm super like introverted and reserved and I don't,
mm.
don't talk a lot. And so you can imagine, right? Like, my walking into a meeting and speaking my
Mhm.
mind was sort of like a turd in a punch bowl. And,
Yeah.
and it, like you have to work through those feelings of, do I make myself small to be
Mm,
accepted? Or do I continue to to lift my voice or to express my opinions, provide my input, my recommendations? I chose the path of continuing, but I do think that to some degree, um, really facing that it was against my against my best wishes, like in terms of, right, like I wasn't serving myself
mm,
personally in terms of
mhm,
career pathing or whatever. I wasn't serving that well.
mhm,
um, but I couldn't imagine not. I
mm.
couldn't imagine not being that person. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine not speaking my truth, and
Mhm.
not in a normal way, raising hell, standing on the table like with my picket sign, but just really more about speaking truth to power, because I think what I've
Mhm,
learned as a director is there's a lot I don't see and hear. And I also am aware that there's a lot that would never be said to me, even if I
mm,
asked,
mm.
because of the position I'm in.
Yeah.
So, right, like I'd rather be
Mm,
the kind of person who can create an environment where people feel welcomed, compelled, and obligated
mhm,
to
mhm.
bring forward, to speak up, to contribute.
Yeah. And how freeing it is to not have to have the right answer every time. Like, how freeing it is to be able to lean on your team and them not think that you're faltering. You know what I mean? And I think that comes from you being able to say I'm still moving my feet, but I don't really know what direction we're going right now, but we're gonna figure it out together,
But by
right?
God, we're marching. Get in line. Let's go.
We're going in a direction. Hopefully it's the right one, but we're gonna get there together, you know. But it is freeing to know that like I don't have to have the right answer, but my team trusts me that I'm going to do the work. I'm going to find the research. I'm going to, hire the right people. We're going to do it. But I don't need to be the dictionary. Like I think that's something very freeing, and it allows the folks who you're leading to step up and fill that role for you.
Yes.
And that is so empowering as someone who's not in
Yes.
that leadership role.
It's easier to sit back and criticize what is happening around you, right? It
Mhm.
takes courage and strength to step up and say, you know what, I got this.
Mhm.
Let me take a stab at this issue.
Yeah.
Um, but those are today and today's and tomorrow's leaders. Like,
Mhm.
and that's how you identify them. That's how
Mhm.
you identify the talent in your team, is looking at the people who look at the greater picture and think, hey, I have an idea, I think this could work. So
Mhm.
we've tried to, we've really put in place a lot of opportunities for the members of our team to have a direct role in like modifying, crafting, creating policies and workflows,
Mm.
because they're the ones doing the job. Um,
Mhm.
how I haven't worked a console in a while. I
Yeah.
could do it, but God help everybody. I would die.
Again, is this the button? Do I push this?
Right? It's the technology. Like, I know how it works. I know how much it
Mhm.
costs. I know
Mhm.
how much my budget can afford, but it has changed so much since
Yeah.
I was on the line that uh, I it, I don't know that I could walk through the door today. And I mean, maybe I could. Maybe I'm being hard on myself. I don't know, but I think it would be very difficult for me to walk through the door today without experience and then become a student
Mhm.
and a brand new employee.
Mhm.
I think it just takes there is a tech savvy involved that is
Mhm.
really remarkable. But I will say that, I mean, I don't think that it's an age thing. We've got a 72-year-old who is
Wow.
just about to be released from basic training into call taking.
So
So
freaking cool.
isn't it? Like, I love that so much. It
Yes.
is the most exciting thing ever.
Oh my gosh.
Like it's not an everyday occurrence, but
Mm.
I love that this person has succeeded with us. So
Yeah. That's so cool. And I mean, it's true. Like, I got folks all the time who like message me and they're like, I'm X amount of years old. I've been doing this. Like, do you think I can do it? And it's like, I mean, the answer is yes. Like you can. You might have to work a little harder. You might have to practice a little more. Like, but I think generally anyone can go out and attempt to do this job and be trained to do this job well if they're in the right environment.
mhm, for sure. And I do think there's a lot to be said about the just kind of the natural resiliency of a person, right? So
Mhm.
regardless of your technological expertise, if you can handle stressful situations without absorbing it and making it your stressful situation
Mhm.
naturally, I think this job can come very naturally for anyone who
Mhm.
is good at that. And
Yeah.
not that we can't teach people. I think you can help someone
Mhm.
to develop that resiliency with kind of the stress and the elevation of the types of calls we receive. Um,
Mhm.
but I definitely would, value those soft skills, those human skills
Mhm.
above like a typing speed. Like we do
Yeah.
critical, but we don't pass fail anyone in critical. It's
Yeah.
just a guideline to tell us like, does this person need a little extra help with typing?
Oh. That's an
So
interesting way of looking at it. I'm sure folks do that out here, but my experience has been a pass fail for most agencies, which drives me crazy because it's critical. It's not really as reflective as you would like it to be in creating the job situation,
right.
So I feel like we're losing a lot of applicants in that
Hmm.
stage of the process,
Yeah.
which is why I put all my resources and stuff out there, and I'm trying to create more things to get people through that step, because if we can get more people through that step, we're going to have more people who can pass training because they need
Yes.
that human interaction to be successful. So I
Yep.
love that you folks aren't pass failing over there. I think that's an amazing. And if you're listening and you have the power to make that change
Yeah.
in your
Oh my
agency, I
gosh.
think it's a great change to make.
Honestly, though, it was like an epiphany.
Yeah.
One day I was just going back through historic recruitments. So looking at our worksheets of like the applicants and their
Mhm.
initial scoring and who was passing and failing.
Mhm.
And I was seeing people who had, and I think the cutoffs that were in place when I arrived, I believe they were like 74% non-data entry overall and 4754 keystrokes per hour.
Wow.
So I saw like oodles of people who had like maybe they scored an 85 overall non-data entry and they had 4,500 keystrokes per and we turned them away.
It's just
What?
wild, right?
Why would you
I have
do
people who are
that?
like failing like one category by 1%, and they're like, I don't know how to get past this 1%. And it's like,
Just
I don't know
pass
either.
them
Just yeah.
through. Oh my god. And so just
So
looking at
true.
that and looking at the numbers, I just about fell out. Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, this is insanity. And this was
Mhm.
right before we dove into COVID, right? And so
Mhm.
we already had staffing issues.
Yeah.
COVID blew the
Mhm.
roof off of the
Yeah,
entire
COVID was
situation.
wild.
But
Yeah.
I mean, we were already doing that. Like right, when I walked into the center, we were probably 13, 14 positions down and we're turning people away like that. I
Yeah.
would rather know about your personality. Are you teachable? Are
Yeah.
you moldable? Like, do you have a good personality? Are you relatable with people? Right? Like, are you a person
Yeah.
that has like you're a decent person? You make mostly good
Mhm.
decisions.
Mhm.
Are you that person? Because that's who I want. And
Yeah.
I thought we cannot do this a minute longer. So,
Yeah.
we've changed that and I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm so on the fence about if I want to continue it or not.
Mhm.
I really feel more strongly about moving more toward into strictly kind of personality-based assessments and
Mm.
figuring out who the person is
Yeah.
just organically, and like, are
Mhm.
they a person we can mold into a successful professional?
Yeah.
Um, and I think there will be more changes along the line. I would love to see, those testing organizations adapt their testing model to the shift in what we're realizing, and
Yeah.
not double down on typing speed, but begin to give more in-depth training, or I'm sorry, testing opportunities
Mhm.
that can give us that insight into the person rather
Yeah.
than the technical skill.
Yeah, and I mean, it even just because that's been my reality is like you have to pass critical in order to get through the stage. Like the fact that the idea that someone has the power to go, no, we don't need that. Like hadn't even like crossed my mind, but it's like so true. Like why are we using this test?
Mhm.
Is this tool something that was put in place X amount of years ago and it's no longer serving us and we just don't know how to break up with it? Like, are we in a toxic relationship with it and don't know how to say goodbye?
Yeah.
Or is the information that we're receiving for it actually helping us get better candidates? I don't have access to that
Yeah.
in like the bigger agencies, so I wouldn't be able to do any type of experiment or data grab or whatever, but that would be the question I would be posing to folks like you who are in those positions, is like, is this really helping us find the best candidates, and why was this implemented in the first
Mhm.
place? Because
Yeah.
we train you
I
and how we do it, our love language,
Mhm.
that's how we're training you, so it's all
I
very
think
interesting.
I think it came from us doing the best we could in the moment. I
Mm,
honestly, I think that we realized we had to have the ability to screen. I
mhm,
also think it might have been somewhat misguided, or
mhm,
maybe it's because I look back on it in retrospect and I have a different understanding now.
mm,
Um, but I also think that in some ways we hurt ourselves as an industry
mm.
by really embracing the mantra of the only 2% of the population can do this job. And by excluding people and cutting them
Yeah.
out, I feel like in some weird unintentional way, we were
Mhm.
validating that belief that we were just grasping onto, like, we are so special, no one can do it. When
Ah,
in reality, with the right cultivation, I think you can get a much broader audience of people and make them thriving, successful professionals.
yeah.
But we sort of did that to ourselves. And then I also think that what's been important is just the openness to deviate away from some of the other background testing. For example, I've been through this process with Aurora, and when I began, we were essentially doing like almost identically like the same kind of a background that we were doing for incoming officers.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Like, we're not in the field, we're not putting hands on people, we don't have control over someone's freedom, we don't care,
Mhm.
right? Like, we're not making a life and well, okay,
Yeah.
we're making life and death
Mhm.
decisions, but we're not the person who's actually, like, making the life and death
Yeah, yeah,
decisions.
we're not
You know what I mean?
contacting, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, that's also another area that I think will have to fundamentally change, like,
Yeah.
um, especially, like, with the psychological, that we're putting people through the same psychological. I'm not sure if we need the same measurements taken.
Yeah.
I also think that in this day and age where we are really working to normalize the use of mental health resources to help us navigate life, um,
Mm.
sometimes is detrimental in the process, because if you disclose that you've had mental health
Yeah.
treatment, you are
Mhm.
then compelled to provide all of your records.
Mm.
I mean, I've engaged a counselor in my lifetime,
Yeah.
and honestly,
As we
if you
all
ask
should.
if you ask me to go back and find that information,
Yeah.
Like, I don't even remember their name right now. What
Yeah.
I knew in the moment is what I needed, and it was helpful. So,
Mhm.
I think that we have to really evaluate this in terms of, are we truly doing that candidate and our organization a service by having it done this way, or is there a better way? Is there a better
Mhm.
way to evaluate how that person presents today?
Yeah.
Like, I don't however you were 10 years ago, that was 10 years ago, and we all grow and evolve. We're all different
Mhm.
than we were 10
Mhm.
years ago.
Mhm.
But how are you right now? How are
Mhm.
you? Can you
Mhm.
do this? Are you
Mhm.
are you healthy? Like, that for me is what I think
Yeah.
that I would rather know. And um just because, right, like, obviously it's stressful, but
Yeah.
I think we just have to really critically evaluate all of our traditions
Mhm.
and not be afraid to change it. Not
Mhm.
be afraid to try it differently. And if it doesn't work,
Mhm.
okay, then do something else. But try
Mhm.
something. We can't stay the same and expect to evolve.
Tina, this has been amazing. Okay. Look, I got all the little notes to be able to clip this stuff out. This has been so good. And as we come to a close, the question that I ask everybody is, what advice would you give someone who is considering a career in dispatch?
If you are looking for a purpose, if what is important to you is that what you do makes a difference in the world, this is a career that can absolutely provide that to you. Come into it with your eyes wide open, knowing that you are engaging people on the worst in some of the worst moments of their life, but they're calling you and they're relying on you because they don't know what else to do. And you can be that person that can guide them, comfort them, connect them with resources, and make the difference between that moment being the worst moment of their life or temporarily being the worst moment of their life, and you can impact that. It's I think that there is such valor in what we do every day that we just don't give ourselves enough credit. You hear a lot about 911 professionals being the unsung heroes, the faceless heroes, right? We're behind the scenes, we're the support. Um, and I'm here to say that anyone coming into this industry, in this field, know that you're making a difference. Let your face be seen, let your voice be heard, because we are worth bragging about. This is not a consolation prize. This is a career. And you can be a part of it. And if your heart's in the right place, you can make this happen and we'll help you. We all want you here.
Awesome. Tina, thank you so much. That was amazing advice. And thank you for what you're doing in your center and the leadership role that you're taking. We got to meet in person at Nina this past conference, and you're living your truth. You're being a representation of the things that I'm sure is sprinkling down to the folks you're leading every day. So thank you for being that type of leader in 911, because we need more of them.
My people make it so easy, and thank you. I think that we all there's nothing preventing any of us from doing that, right? We
Mhm,
we just have to give ourselves permission and then
mhm,
get out of our own way. And
exactly.
right, every process looks a little different, but I'm telling you, it's happening. And I feel like it's catching on. And I love watching this, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's like the great emergence of like, we're
It is
here
what
and we are taking over.
like groundhogs. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, where
I
are
love it so much. It's the best. What a great high note to, come toward the final years of my career. I mean, it's amazing.
Awesome. Well, again, Tina, thank you so much, and I'll be right back with you.
Okay.
All right, everybody, that was another amazing episode here at Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, Tina, thank you so much. And for the folks who are listening and who are in leadership roles and who aren't in leadership roles, we are all responsible for creating great environments at these centers that we're spending 12, 14 hours a day in. And it's easy to just be kind, and it's easy to admit when, hey, we don't always have the answer, and that's okay. Until next time, everybody, stay raspy. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk Dispatch, a Raspy Dispatcher production. If you liked the podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and of course, tell a friend. If you want to be a guest, head to theraspydispatcher.com and check out our additional resources. Until next time, stay raspy, everybody.